Welcome back to another episode of the podcast Not the Same, where I bring you true stories of real people sharing their personal testimonies of transformation. I'm your host, Rachel Heinberg. Sometimes I feel like I repeat myself too much, but I am so grateful for everyone who takes the time to listen to these episodes and hopefully share them. I marvel each and every week over God's power to transform a life. That being said, if you've just tuned in, thank you. I'm glad you found us. I hope this will become a new favorite. And of course, we are available on all major platforms. So choose your favorite and like, subscribe, follow, and share to make sure you don't miss out. Last week, we heard an encouraging story from Caesar about finding purpose and identity in Christ despite his upbringing and adverse circumstances. So this week, I have with me Natasha Jacobs. I met Natasha our very first week here 3 years ago when we moved to South Africa. And very shortly, we got in a band together. So we have been closely intertwined for the last few years. We're on our second band now.
Yes.
And I really enjoy getting to know her and being with her. And she is an integral part of our congregation here with her husband as well. So, as usual, I know a little bit here and there for testimony, so I asked her to share with me today, and let's get started. So, first of all, thank you very much for agreeing to this.
Thank you for having me.
So, let's start with how you were raised.
Okay, so we are 3 children. I'm the middle child.
Okay.
I have 2 brothers, and so we grew up quite comfortably.
Did you grow up here?
Yes.
In Eldorado Park?
Yes, in Extension 9. So we grew up quite comfortably. My father's from Johannesburg, my mother's from Port Elizabeth. They met here in Joburg, and so my parents got married when my brother was about 8 months old. Life wasn't very difficult growing up. My father was for a very long time the only one working, so he could take care of all of us, and so life was a bit comfortable.
So what's the age difference between you and your older brother?
3 years, and then between myself and my younger brother, 6 years.
Okay. So you went to school here?
Okay, so what happened is that we used to live in Extension 9. As far as I remember, that's where I grew up. When I look at old photos of, like in the family album, that's where I see that was home for us. I attended school at Parkdale Primary School from grade 1 to grade 4, and then we had major changes in our lives.
Okay.
So what happened is my father used to work for the bank, and in that way he was able to take care of our family. My mother I think she was a housewife for a very long time. So the age difference between myself and my brother, 3 years. And so he was 3 years ahead of me. So I think I was in grade 4 and then he was in grade 7.
Okay.
So he had to go to high school, and he wanted to go to the high school that's close to the home where we used to live. That change meant that I had to now go to a different school because we used to walk together to school. And my parents didn't want me walking alone to school. So he went off to high school, and then I went to a different primary school.
So this is 4th grade or 5th grade?
So I completed grade 4 at Parkdale. And then when he went over to grade 8, I went over to grade 5.
Okay.
Then I was at a school closer to home. This is where things changed a little bit. I completed grade 5 and grade 6 at a school close to home. So my father was working for the bank, and my uncle, he had his own company. And from the outside, it seemed like his company was doing very well. He was able to take care of his family, and they lived quite comfortably. So my father thought that a move to my uncle's company would do him good.
What did he do at the bank?
He was processing checks and so on. He was working for ACB. Okay. It's a division of Nedbank.
Yeah. So a good bank.
Yes.
Okay.
So he got his job. He went over and he worked with my uncle. So my uncle was, he received like big contracts where he would tile like hospital floors and stuff like that. So he would really get good jobs. Okay. And so him and my father were working together as partners, but there was nothing on paper. There was nothing on paper. And then I think it was when I was in grade 6, my uncle was then involved in a car accident. And so he was like the boss of the company, and my father was just working just below him.
But there was no employee contracts?
Absolutely nothing. The company was not registered. Nothing like that. So they basically just started his own thing. He had people working for him. He took my father as a partner, and they were working together. So my uncle was involved in a terrible car accident and he died. His wife, at the time, she was working a normal job at the bank, but she was in no position to take over the company. My father wanted to continue with the company and continue running things as how my uncle ran it. But my aunt, she wasn't up for it because he had all these people working, like all the workers. He had buckies that they used for transporting things and moving from one place to the other. She didn't want to do anything like that. Wow. So that meant that my father had lost a job.
So did she just dissolve the company?
Yes.
She just let it go?
She just let it go. And it just didn't make sense.
Okay. So she's just making decisions probably out of grief. Because people do that.
So she just let everything go, and my father wanted to go ahead, but ultimately it was up to her.
Yeah, community property, yeah.
So she just decided she doesn't want to go ahead with us. The company just dissolved. And so my father was in a position where he had just left a good job, and now this thing didn't work out.
And now he doesn't have a job.
Now he doesn't have a job. So he tried applying at the banks again. Maybe a year or 2 years had gone by. And according to them, he wasn't skilled anymore.
Wow.
He wasn't skilled anymore.
In that short amount of time?
Yes. So things are always updating and he just didn't have the skills anymore. And so he tried numerous times to get back into the bank and he just couldn't. So that's where things changed drastically for us.
Yeah.
So life became less comfortable.
Okay. So you felt it at home?
I did, definitely, because what happened is my father wasn't able to make house payments anymore. My mother had to get a job, and then my father, I don't think he could handle what was happening. He missed some payments. Then he fell into arrears.
Yeah.
He wasn't able to pay the house anymore, and then the bank then gave him an ultimatum. He had to sell the house, settle his debt that he had, and then we were left with family in a much smaller place. Then,
who did you move with?
With my aunt, my father's aunt. It's my grandfather's sister. So we moved in with my aunt, and then there was another change again. So remember, I changed schools because my brother had to move closer to home, and then I had to change schools again because the school that my aunt wanted to enroll me into was very far. So in order for me to just be close to school, she just moved. At that time, our family started falling apart. My elder brother didn't like that. So he moved in with my aunt who lost her husband.
Okay.
So he moved in with her.
How old was he, or what grade was he in?
I think he was going to do grade 11 that year.
Okay. So he's 16?
Yes.
Something around
Yes. There. And then that year I was going to do grade 7. Now I'm in a different school.
Okay.
It's my last year of primary school. I don't have friends. Nothing is familiar to me. I'm like the weird girl at school. I'm wearing glasses. There was no money to buy me a school uniform. Yeah. I don't have one. So I just used to wear grey pants every day. Summer, winter, didn't matter. And a shirt. And it was like, okay, this is just going to be one awkward year for me. And it was okay. I didn't have friends. Could have been middle of the year. But then that's where someone actually introduced themselves to me and I actually had a friend.
Wow.
But then it's close to the end of the year, so
it's already, because school years in South Africa are 12 months with breaks in between. So as far as family life.
Okay, so let me just go back a little bit. My father was present in terms of providing, but the emotional part of it, he wasn't very, very present. He had a family, his friends knew he had a family. He would spend time with us, but he would spend more time with his friends.
Okay.
So that didn't change much after everything happened. And so now the family is kind of falling apart. My brother's no longer living with us. Yeah. It's only myself, my little brother, and my parents.
And he's still quite small at this time.
Yes.
He's maybe grade 1, 2?
Yes, that's exactly, because I think he was in grade 1 because I was in grade 7, something like that. So, yeah.
In this time, I usually like to ask, what was your religious background? Did you have a religious background? Did you go to church?
Okay, so my mother, I actually spoke to my mother about this not too long ago. So I know my mother used to drink before she had kids.
Okay.
Then after my brother, she said that it would be weekends. And then after Chad, she stopped drinking.
Okay, that's your youngest brother?
Yes. So in the area where we used to live, there was a family around the corner from home. They were
Okay.
born again Christians, and they used to go to a Pentecostal church. That guy was actually the pastor of the church, and they invited my mother to church, and that's where I got my religious background from. So it was a Pentecostal church. I remember we used to go to church on a Sunday. My
Like
father,
every Sunday faithfully, or just kind of whenever?
every Sunday faithfully. Many times over the weekends they would have some sort of convention or like just something over the weekend, and then we would go to that family. My father would drop us off. He would pick us up, but he would not go with us to church. He would sometimes come home on a Sunday morning. He would have a hangover, and he would have like his beer in the car, and then he would drop us off at church. And I don't even remember my mother fighting with him about that. He used to drop us at church, and that's where I saw my mother serving God.
Okay.
So that's the religious background. We used to go to church,
but it was just something that you guys did.
Yes, we just did it. We just did it. The church my mother used to go to, it was Afrikaans. And so I speak Afrikaans to my mother and I speak English to my father. And my father didn't really like the Afrikaans church. So there was another church that was close to home. This is now back when we grew up in the home that my parents bought. So
this is before everything happened?
Yes, this is before he lost his job and everything.
Yeah.
And so there was a church. It was English. It's one of those Bible churches, those mega churches.
Okay.
Me and my brother stopped going to my mother's church and we started going to the mega church. It was also just a thing of just going to church. My father used to drop us off. So they didn't mind us going to church.
But your father still never went to that church?
No.
Even though he found the English church?
No, he still didn't.
That's funny.
And yeah, that's the religious background.
So did any of that stop once all this stuff started happening?
We stopped going to church at all.
Okay.
And then we moved in with my aunt and she was a Catholic. And now there's this Catholic influence. I remember coming home from school one day and she was at home. She had retired. I think it was during the Lent period. So she was sitting and listening to some recordings from church and she was sitting with the rosary and she was reciting things. Then the influence from the Catholic side, then it started influencing me. And I started going to the Catholic church.
Oh, wow.
And I was so interested in like catechism. My aunt wanted me to join it. And then when they told me about the commitment of 7 years, I'm like, no, that's too much for me.
So because you said you were interested in it, was there something that drew you or did you just like the ceremony of it? Or
I think it was just the ceremony of it. And the church wasn't as long as the church. The service wasn't as long.
So you're thinking just get in, do your prayers, get out, I'm done.
And then they had this other thing, I think it was communion. But it was only for people who went through the whole catechism thing. And so I think I just wanted it. It just seemed nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, all the traditions of it.
Yes, but I didn't realize, like, listening to that prayer now,
it's a bit strange.
It's strange, really. Yeah. Then we stopped going to the church that my mother used to go to. But then she also started this job and she was working night shift. She couldn't go to church because she was just too busy.
So you said during 7th grade is when you finally met one friend about halfway through the year or almost to the end of the year.
Yes. At that point, I haven't found my true identity.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything. I was just going along with what was happening around me. And at that time, things got a little bit too much for my father. He started indulging in substances and it was just like...
When you say substance, do you mean drugs or just alcohol?
Drugs and alcohol.
Okay.
There was also influence from my uncles because now we are all together. Life was just like, it was a mess. During school holidays, we would go to my aunt. And that was some sense of normality. Just me and my brother.
Okay.
We would go and visit my aunt like March, June, September and December. That's the school holidays. So we would be away from home and then we would be with my aunt. And there was some sense of normality, like family. Things just seemed
even though he was passed away, the family
they
felt more stable.
Yes, they were stable.
That's interesting.
We would go to bed at a normal time. Supper time would be normal. It just felt like, okay, this feels normal.
Okay.
When we had to go back home, it would be like, do we have to go back home again?
Yeah.
And so I remember it got to a point where my aunt even used to pick us up on a Friday afternoon, take us to her home. She used to live in the East Rand. She would come to Aldo's, pick us up, me and my little brother. Then we would spend the weekend there and then we would come home on a Sunday.
Because your older brother's already staying there. So she would come get you guys?
Yes. And then sometimes like over the weekend we would go through and visit and then we would kind of like be a little family again, the normal family. And so that was life growing up until grade 7. I was the weird child at school, but it turned out to be my best year academically.
Wow, that's good at least.
Yes.
Because sometimes it manifests itself in academics, right? Where you see, I mean, you're a teacher. And you probably have noticed that sometimes when kids are struggling at home, you'll see a big drop in their marks.
Yes, definitely.
But Bongi also mentioned in hers that it was also the opposite, where things were chaotic at home, but because of it, she pushed herself to be like top because she didn't want people to know that it was chaos, So it's just an interesting thing. So now what happens?
So now I finished grade 7 because I came from a different school. So at that time, the school then gave applications to learners who has been at the school like since grade 1 for the high school just opposite the primary school, like the chosen ones.
Preferred students.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I did not get that one where all the others were going to. I think I felt rejected. I think we were like just a handful who went to another high school. But I think that was just God, because if I didn't go to the school that I went to, I wouldn't have met the friend who introduced me to Jesus.
There you go.
So then I went over to grade 8.
So grade 8 is high school now.
Yes.
And now you're in another new school.
Now I'm in a new school. And thank God there was stability from grade 8 up until grade 12. So I did not like school. Although it was the best year academically, I didn't like school because my parents weren't able to give me money for dress up on a Friday. You know how it is here in South Africa. Children usually wear like jeans and whatever on a Friday. You have to pay.
Yeah.
So we didn't have money for that. I can say that my parents really tried their best, but obviously luxuries was just one of those things like, I'm sorry, you can't have this. I was okay with it.
Did your dad ever end up getting a job?
He did, but it was not one that would be able to see to all our needs and stuff like that.
And then your mom still was working hours?
She was still working. Okay. She was working night shift. That's where life just started getting crazy because it was just me, my father, and my brother at home. She was at work. We were at home. So now I'm in grade 8. It's my first year of high school. I'm just getting to know people and like everything is just new to you. You're at the school where you have people around you is like 18 years old and you are only like 13 or 14 years old.
It's one of the things I don't like about South African high school is that the age gap is very massive.
Yes.
It's adults with children and it's scary.
So during that same time, I'm going through puberty. Like there's a lot of things happening. Life is not really stable at home. I'm scared to tell my mom about the changes that I'm experiencing. I just met this friend at school. We don't know one another that long. I don't know if I can trust her with what I'm going through. There's things I need, but I'm too scared to ask for anything. So I just keep quiet. And then when I get to my aunt, the one that used to fetch us over the weekend, then I tell about things that I'm going through. My mother she's not a bad. It's just,
but she had to work.
All the changes, yes. Yeah. She's busy. She's trying to make ends meet just to get things going for our family.
Yeah.
Like I told you, we moved, but the area that we are living in, life is different over there. It's poverty over there. I'm figuring things out. I'm seeing boys and stuff like that. Now moved to grade 9. And now I'm 14, 15 years old. Now I'm hanging out with a cousin who I met in the area that we were living in. So she's introducing me to the hubbly bubbly, and my mother's not at home. You know the hookah pipe?
Okay.
The
hookah pipe.
Yes.
Okay. That's the first time I've heard that.
She's introducing me to the hubbly bubbly, and she's introducing me to boys on a different level compared to what I knew in grade 8. You just see someone and you're like, oh, he's cute.
Yeah.
Now she's introducing me to different things. Nothing too deep, nothing sexual.
But just feelings where it's okay, now it's not just, I think he's cute, but
now it's
we can have a relationship.
Yes.
Okay.
So, my mother's not at home. She's at work. My father's basically taking care of me and my brother. And now, I'm able to walk around at night because my mother's not at home. And my father's on his own vibe. He's around, but he's in the yard doing his own thing. He's either maybe drinking or using drugs or something. My mother's at work.
So basically now, you're saying you had freedom to get into trouble.
Yes. So we would sit with this group of guys at night, especially on a Friday night or on a Saturday. We would sit outside up until 8 or 9 at night. And then my father would come looking for me. And then I would go back home. So at that time, like I said, she introduced me to this.
Real quick, did you find that you enjoyed it because of the acceptance? Or did you kind of find your place? Is that what was appealing to it? Or was it just I feel cool here?
I think it was a mixture of feeling cool, being accepted, and just having someone because I think she's a year older than me. She knew much more than I knew. So on a random day, I would just go to her because I would feel like, okay, I feel like I'm accepted here.
Mm-hmm.
We would sit and we would like listen to music, whatever. I think I was just trying to fit in.
Yeah.
And because for a very long time I was like the weird one in the area, I wouldn't socialize with the other girls. I would just be with my cousin.
Yeah.
And then I would do a lot of things that boys were doing.
Yeah.
I had a lot of boyfriends. So I would like play with marbles. I would play with the tops, these little plastic guns. So growing up, I had like friends that were boys.
Yeah.
And then she comes along and it's like, okay, now there's a girl. I can identify with a girl.
So now you're feeling
now
like, okay, let's do girl things.
Yes. But obviously, my mind was not where her mind was.
Yeah.
Okay, so now smoking hubbly and then out with the guys, and then this is now throughout grade 9. Then grade 10, a change, but it was a good one. So I met a friend. I saw her like since grade 8. She was very quiet, very weird. She always used to walk around with
her hoodie up.
Yes. And she always used to wear grey pants, and she never used to like to wear the school's jacket. She would just like wear any hoodie. Okay. And then I used to see her and I'm like, okay, this girl is a bit weird, but anyway, I want to fit in with the cool girls, like the cool ones.
When you're the odd one out and you see another one that's odd one out, sometimes you're not drawn to them because you're like, I don't want to look like that. Let me go with the cool people. I totally identify. Mm-hmm.
So that was grade 8. We weren't in the same class. Grade 9, we were not in the same class either. I remember it was January of grade, it was grade 11. Sorry.
Just the start of it.
Yes, the beginning, because grade 10 was just a crazy year. I just got more exposed to whatever my cousin was doing. And so grade 11.
Before we get to grade 11, during this whole time, did you ever come across situations where you felt unsafe? I see kids in Eldorado Park all the time. They're always outside. They're always smoking the hookah pipe. They're always, whatever. But did that life ever expose you to a more sinister side of gangs or violence or alcohol? I mean, anything?
Not really.
Not so much.
Not gangs. Because the people that I used to hang around with, they weren't into gangs. They were more into just trying to like hook up with one another. So that was life on the side. So remember I said over the weekend and holidays we used to go to my aunt. So there I was then exposed to alcohol. Life over here, it was like with the guys and with the hookah.
Just being a teenager.
Yes, being a teenager. And then over the weekend we would go and holidays. So I remember my introduction to alcohol was through family members. I was like 15 or 16 years old, and according to my aunt and them, it's like if we see they are drinking, it's okay. They would much rather do it with us than go out and do it elsewhere.
It's a lot of mentality of parents.
So that's where I was introduced to alcohol. We would drink like ciders. My aunt and them, they used to like whiskey. They even used to give us whiskey. And so my cousin, he had a lot of freedom. We would sit in his room and we would smoke this habli babli, this hookah pipe in his room. For me, that's just crazy because even now, like he's still addicted to the habli babli.
Wow.
That's like more than 16 years later. So I'm living this life over here. I'm living this life over here. Okay. I just have complete freedom. Complete freedom. Nothing sexual, just in terms of alcohol and stuff like that. So now my friend, we met one another in grade 10 and I would see her and she would still be like the weird one. But now I'm caught between trying to be okay with her and then still with the other girls in the class.
Yeah.
So she was the weird one. She would come to school with a book this thick and she would sit and read. And then I'm like, no, I can't do this. This is weird for me. Let me go and sit with those ones. They seem like they're a little bit more cool.
I get you. Totally.
So now I'm with her and then I'm with them and I'm with her and I'm with them. Obviously, she's my friend. I would tell her what I was doing over the weekend with either like my cousins, where we were allowed to drink, or with my cousin at home and what we would do.
Staying out.
Yes, at night and whatever. So I'm telling all these things, and at that time, she's a born-again Christian. So she can see what I'm doing and I hid nothing from her. Yeah. I would tell her what we are doing.
Why did you tell her?
I just wanted someone to listen to my stories. Yeah. I just wanted like to have a story to tell.
See, obviously looking in hindsight, you probably felt more safe with her.
Yes.
sometimes the weird ones that read books, they're the ones that have it together a bit. Not always, but you know what I mean?
Like, we were together all the time, and I think I just wanted just to feel safe with someone, and she wouldn't judge me.
Yeah.
She would listen to my stories, and she wouldn't have much to tell because she wasn't living the life I was living.
Yeah.
So I think it was just a point in my life where I just wanted what everyone else was doing, like all the teenagers. She watched my life for a year. Then going over to grade 11. So I would tell her the stories of like the boys that I used to date and whatever. Then I would always ask her, and what were you doing? Now I went to church, or I went on a camp or whatever. And that was the life that she was living. And then this is the life I was living. I remember we had an impact team from London. They were at our school.
Okay, we just jumped here. So there was an impact team from this church. I mean,
coming from London for this church.
But you weren't at this church yet.
No,
okay,
I wasn't.
So the Eldorado Park Potter's House had an impact team from London.
Yes.
And then they went and did what? A concert at your school? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
So Liban at the time was the youth leader at the church. And then he had a good relationship with the teachers at our school.
Okay.
So many times the church would come in, and then during our assemblies, so they would come in, and then I remember that morning, Chanel was so excited. And then she's like, no, there's this team from London. And I'm thinking, London what? So what, London?
Okay, and so then, real quick, so you skipped a detail here. So this friend, you never said who this friend was.
No.
Until now. So who is this friend?
Chanel. Yes.
So if you are following our podcast, and I hope you are, please do, you will recognize that name because she was on here a few weeks back. She was maybe the third or fourth one. I'm not quite sure. And we did hear about Chanel. So now we know who this friend is.
Yes.
That's going to church and is being your confidant. Okay, so now she tells you, hey, this team, she says, is coming from London.
Yes.
And then you say, London what? Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so what? They're at the school, they shared testimonies, they had a concert and so on. So now I'm like close to my last year of school. So I'm still just trying to be a school girl. This is in the beginning of the year, this is January. And they're sharing testimonies and there's an altar call. And I remember at that time I felt guilt, which now I know is conviction. When they had the altar call, I didn't respond to the altar call. But I could feel like what I was doing wasn't okay.
You felt something.
I felt something.
Yeah.
Let me just quickly go back. My father, I'm not sure how it came about, but he got saved in this church. But at that time, I was just living my own life.
So by the time he's now decided, I need to give up all this nonsense and go to church, you already are like, whatever.
Yes.
So you never came along with him?
No, I never came with him. And he was really changed. He used to read his Bible. I could see him read his Bible. He no longer drank. He didn't smoke anymore. I could see the change.
Did you ever ask him about it?
At that time, I'm like, okay, this is new and okay, this is nice. I hope it continues. Obviously, he stopped whatever he was doing. There was less issues at home. And yeah, it was just more relaxed at home.
But you never went with him?
No. The guys would drop him off after church and they would stand and talk to him, encouraging him.
But never mind, God sent Chanel.
Yes,
to
on
your
the other
school,
side.
on the other side.
Yes. So I didn't respond to the altar call, and I think it was 2 weeks later. Then she challenged me. I remember it was early in the morning. I think it was during our register period. We would go to our register period and then we would mark the register to see who's at school, who's not at school. So we went out of the class and she called me. She's like, I want to ask you something. And I'm thinking, is Chanel starting with her stories again? Because that's how intense she was. You can't just give her any answer. Like, if she asks you something, you need to sit and you need to think about it. I'm thinking, Chanel is starting with her things. So she asks me, if you had to die today, where would you go? And I'm thinking, I'm going to say heaven. And then she's like, I want you to think about it. Don't just give an answer. Now, remember, I used to tell her all the things that I was doing.
She knows.
She knows. Yeah. She knew what I was doing. And I thought about it. And then she's like, remember, good people also go to hell. And then
I'm so glad to see she hasn't changed at all.
And I thought to myself, I'm not getting away from this. I know the life I was living.
Yeah.
I felt the conviction 2 weeks before that. And then I had to be honest with myself. And I said, I would not go to heaven. And then she's like, that's not a place that you want to go. And then she encouraged me to come to church. I think it was either the Wednesday or the Sunday, and I delayed it. I didn't come to church. My excuse was I didn't have clothing, like proper clothes to go to church.
That's everyone's excuse here. You don't have to wear anything special. You just come.
Yes.
As long as you have some clothes on,
come.
You can come.
And so remember, I used to play with boys and I only had pants.
Okay.
So I came to church wearing a pants and just a normal t-shirt, and I walked in and I think I sat next to her. Pastor Bennett was preaching.
Did you come with your dad or did you come by yourself?
I think that Sunday I came with him.
Okay.
So we came and then Pastor Bennett preached. I responded to the altar call. So she was sitting next to me. I'm sure she was waiting for me to raise my hand, and I'm sure if I didn't raise my hand, she was going to ask me again. So I repented that morning.
Who prayed with you? Did she pray?
She prayed with me. And so it was life-changing. I knew there was a change.
Immediately
there was a change.
Oh, that's great.
I remember I used to walk from school and my mindset was just completely different. At that time, I had a boyfriend and then she challenged me about this boy. She's like, you need to break up with this boy. Fornication is a sin. So I'm asking, what is fornication? And then she's like, it's having a sexual relationship with someone you're not married to. And I'm thinking, we're not even having sex. Like, why do I need to break up with him? And then she explained to me the aspect of like loving holy and purity, and one thing definitely will lead to another. And then I'm like, okay, luckily I didn't have to break up with him. He broke up with me. So then I could just focus on God.
Without distractions.
Yes, without distractions. Then she helped me a lot with me growing.
Sorry, real quick. So from that moment, you said you changed, and were you immediately faithful?
Immediately faithful. I just wanted to be here all the time. She encouraged me to join Foundations for the Faith. I got saved in January, and then the July I got baptized.
Okay.
And before the baptism, immediately after getting saved, her and Liban helped me a lot in terms of my walk with God. So then I'm meeting girls like Melissa. I'm meeting all these young girls, and I can see that they are living for God. I remember one day we were walking to school and, she's just trying to help me. Obviously, the life I was living, it's not easy because now I have these girls in class and the pressure at school, like, why aren't you doing what we are doing? Why are you now with Chanel? So she helped me a lot. We were walking to school one day and she said to me, you need to pray. And I used to pray and she encouraged me to read my Bible, like just the basics of just becoming a Christian. And that's what I used to do. Getting stronger, coming to youth, socializing with other Christians, it really helped.
That was a time when there was a lot of your age come.
Yes, like with Cherie, Shannon,
they were all...
Yes, we were all just coming together.
And so just a side note, we'll probably get to their testimonies. I would like to, especially Shannon, but the ones you mentioned, Chanel, Shannon and Cherie, Melissa, they are all in pastoral ministry right now. Like Cherie and Shannon are married. They're pastoring a church. Melissa's married to a pastor. They're pastoring in our fellowship. And all of you guys were all like young people together. I think that's
together. Lebo as well, and Timba.
It was just amazing. And you're all still in church. You're all saved. You're all serving God now. I mean, that was an incredible time that you got saved in.
Definitely. So now I'm learning and I'm growing and I'm no longer doing the things I used to do.
So how did that play out with your family? Like, what did your mom think? Because now your dad and you are in church.
When I finished grade 11, then my mother, she got a new job, a daytime job. So now she can see what's going on. Like the change in me, and I'm no longer listening to the music that I used to listen to. So now finished grade 11, moved over to grade 12 and still serving God faithfully. And then...
When did Wendell come into the picture?
Okay, so grade 12.
Grade 12.
Grade 12, he was bothering me, he was bugging me. He used to phone me from work. For some reason...
Hey, at least he was at work. At least he had a job.
Yes. Okay, so now I can see Chanel's life. Like, she's focused. I know what she wants and I can see where she's heading. And so we used to come to youth at night. And then I met Wendell. But I wasn't interested in Wendell at all. I was just happy to come to church, serve God, and see my friends. I was just happy doing that.
Yeah.
He comes along and then he's very gentle. So you would just see him in passing. Okay, there's Wendell, and then he's gone home or whatever. And then we went on an impact team to Pietermaritzburg. So it was a group of us. We got on this impact team. And then we started talking to one another, but it was nothing deep because at that time I could see the vision of the fellowship, people getting married, people going out to pioneer. So I could see that this is what Chanel wanted to do. I'm thinking to myself, boy, please stay away from me because I don't want to get married. Please, I just need to focus on finishing school and then I want to go and study. If we end up dating, I would have to get married and I didn't want to get married. So now he's showing a little bit more interest. He asks for my phone number and we started talking. So if he wanted to talk to me, he would just phone me.
Yeah.
Other than that, we would just see one another at church. Like, he would always be in the transport with the driver, dropping off people. And he's like, I want to get married. And at that time, I didn't want to get married. So then...
Sorry, I love how every one of these in this certain time frame here, it was like marriage was like the only option. If you talk to a boy, it was just marriage, which I get. We date for a purpose, right? We intentionally date. But like, he just wants to get to know you, and you're like, I don't want to get married. And he's like, whoa. Everything was just so intentional. Like, if I talk to you,
we are going to get married. One day we were standing and talking in the kitchen, and someone found us. And then this guy's like, you guys are talking. Are you ready to get married? And I'm like, no. And then I was out of the kitchen. And then so when Wendell wanted to talk to me, I'm like, no, remember what we were told? Like, please do not. I don't want to get married.
If you talk to me, we're getting married. Don't talk to me. Oh, wow.
So that was grade 12. And then he backed down. I finished school. And at that point, I'm like, okay, what happens now? Yeah. Like, I don't have direction in life. I don't have any job openings. I just felt like at that point, nothing's going on. Then I got an appetite for the things of the world again. I would still come to church every Sunday morning. I think I was even in ministry. But what I was doing on a Saturday, it was not okay. I was just living a double life.
Well, it's a heart issue, right?
Yes.
I mean, we always try to look at the big sins, but a heart issue, where your heart is.
Yes.
You're letting your heart get pulled away.
Yes. Yeah. The season didn't last very long. It was like for a couple of months because that conviction was still there. It wasn't nice sinning at that time because of the conviction. And so I rededicated my life again, and I just decided, now I'm just going to focus. Now, I think I'm 19 years old. I started working in July of 2011. So now I'm working and, I'm focused now again. Then 2012, Wendell showed interest again. And now I'm thinking, okay, I'm now 19. I only want to get married after the age of 21. Because in South Africa, there's this big culture of first turning 21. And then I got married when I was 20. So I didn't have a 21st.
No, I have heard that, and it's interesting. I mean, there's lots of different theories about it. But it's almost like at 21, it's your get out of jail card, right?
Yes, you can do
you have permission to do whatever. But in the sinful world, that's bad. That means you have permission. You're grown. You can do whatever you want. Yes. But that plays into, don't do anything before you're 21.
I think the whole thing of having a 21st is still being a virgin, and they usually give you this key or whatever.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, it's consent to now you can go and mess around. That's just not reality in this sinful world. But it does play into even the church where it's like, why are you going to get married before you're 21?
Yes. So I really thank God for Chanel sharing the gospel with me and having a friend that would tell you about your soul, because I was destroying my life. Looking from the age of like 14 when I was hanging out with my cousin, I was destroying my life. If I didn't get saved, my life would have been a disaster. So just looking back, I really thank God for salvation and for having a friend who would just share the gospel with me.
Absolutely.
Love me that much to share the gospel with me.
And push you.
Yes. And tell me and to work on my relationship with God. Encourage me to pray. Encourage me to read my Bible. I remember one time, just going back again, Melissa, Lieben, they would just show up at my house and like, come, let's go. I'm thinking to do what? They're like, no, let's just go and hang out. And like being with people who just want to be with you.
Not for a reason.
It was different. No one has like weird intentions with you compared to the guys with my cousins. Those ones who just wanted something from you. Like, go and just have pure fun, go home and then see you again on Wednesday. Stuff like that. It was just different. Should we go back to Wendell?
Yeah, so now he's showing interest in you. And now you're like, okay, I guess.
Let me give in. I remember in October of 2012, he really showed interest in me. So he started speaking to me more and I got to see a different side. The gentle side of him. I could see like he wanted something more. I could see like this guy wants to get married. He wants to have a stable life and stuff like that. So then 2012, October, we started courting. And our courtship wasn't very long. It was like 4 months.
You guys never had a proper proposal, did you?
Never.
I'm telling you what. This is just, every single couple is like, there's no proposal. Nobody was proposed to. I think Sibonbangi were.
Yes.
Kind of, but it was also like in the middle
like
of
formal.
like super informal, like in the middle of church, just whatever. So when did you guys decide to get married?
We were given like 6 months.
Okay. And it was getting close?
Yes. And they're like, time is getting closer. What's going to happen? And then, at that point, obviously I was praying about it, asking God if this is who I should marry. And I got confirmation that that's the guy. And yes, so we spoke about it. He's like, okay, we're going to get married. We signed formally on the 7th of February. Then we had the ceremony in church a month later on the 10th of March. Our wedding was very simple. Life was just very simple.
Back to what you said before, how you just said, thank God that you had a friend and she was able to
share the gospel with me
and divert your life. You know, what I know now, your own personal family, not you and Wendell, but they've had a lot of their own struggles.
Yes.
If I remember currently, your brother's still on drugs.
Yes, he is.
And we can say with a lot of confidence that you could have gone down that path.
Definitely. Especially growing up in the place where we grew up.
Yeah.
Life was just destined to become nothing. A lot of teenagers in that area, they don't reach their potential. And I think definitely life was just going to be the same for me. Teenage pregnancy. Definitely I was going to be another statistic.
Yeah.
My life was going to end up like that.
I've lived for long enough to know that you just see the cycle repeated, right?
Yes.
And you've shown me a couple of places where you grew up different times. Some of these neighborhoods, it's hectic over there. Like
yes.
it's very, like there's no hope. There's zero hope outside of the gospel. Just to finish the story of the restoration of your life is that you and Wendell got married. You now have 2 beautiful children. You have a daughter who is 8, and then Rylan is my little buddy. And he's going to be 4 next month. This month. Wendell's the song leader. He's an usher. He's on the council. I mean, he's like integral to the church. And you also in ministry, you lead the kitchen ministry, and we're in a band and song service drummer. You know what I mean? Like you're so involved.
Yes.
I mean, God saved you for such a purpose.
Yes.
And I know without that one friend that just was bold enough to share that with you, I think that's super.
It would have played out way different.
I think that's just super cool. I'm sure even Chanel, she's watched you this whole time, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if she ever stops and thinks, man, I'm so glad I just opened my mouth, was a friend, and I was a Christian. You know, she wasn't anything spectacular. She was just a Christian. She was doing what she was supposed to do. I know she listens, so she'll hear this, but it's cool to look back and you think, I made a difference in someone's life. I made an impact in someone else's life. And I'm sure there's going to be other stories that we may know or we may not know where somebody will point to you. I know this isn't the platform to talk about all the other stuff because I know that God's done so many miracles in your life since then.
Can I just, like I said, like a lot of the things, like life since we got married was very simple, but I can still see the hand of God. So in my mind, it seems very simple. It seems very plain. But I can see the blessing. Yeah. So although in my mind it seems small, I can definitely see the hand of God.
Yeah, absolutely. The beauty of it though is that sometimes we're predispositioned to see chaos as the norm.
Yes.
So if things aren't chaotic and things aren't like, this is happening, and oh, life's been crazy and upside down, then we think, are we really living? But sometimes the beauty is just like, you use the word simple, but I like to use the word stable. Even in all the ups and downs and the trials, because I know we've talked, you and I, and life hasn't been easy. But you say simple in the fact that the chaos is gone. Thank God, despite the heartaches and the ups and downs, it's still so beautiful. And this beautiful, simple life that God's blessed you with. Your kids, I mean, both of them are geniuses. They're too big for their pants, but they're in this stable home where mom and dad are there and dad is present and dad is working and mom is home for now. Sometimes sometimes you're teaching because that's life. But you know what I mean? Like there's stability, there's love. They're a part of this. Yes. I mean, they walk around here like they own the church sometimes. And I think that's great. They don't have to go through what you went through. They don't have to go through the chaos of where are we going to live.
And we always tell them, you guys live a blessed life. Sometimes when we tell them the stories of growing up, they have no idea.
Incredible. So if you could say a parting thing, you know, maybe there's another younger girl that's like that. God knew what you needed. So if you could encourage somebody else, maybe somebody that's young and just saved.
One thing that's really important is your identity. Going back to Chanel, she always just encouraged me, you need to find your identity in Christ. Even within salvation, I still needed to find out who I am in Christ. So that's the most important thing. Find out who you are. And I think in that way, then you will flourish.
That's true. I think that's a beautiful place to stop. I want to say thanks for taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I always enjoy talking to you. I know you and we can chat, but I appreciate you sharing this because I hope people will just be encouraged, not only for the unsaved, but also as a Christian.
Yes.
Even myself, I've been so encouraged every single story. Sometimes I'll go home and I'll just talk to my husband and be like, God is so good. He's so amazing. Every person I've talked to has done something for me. I'm so privileged, and I say this often, so those of you that listen, but I'm just so privileged to be able to have this opportunity. Steve's actually from last week. He talked to me Wednesday. He was just saying how there's just so many people to get their stories. Like, as soon as you think of this person, then he's like, oh, but what about this person and this person? What he said was something to the effect of, everyone has a story.
Yes.
So far, it's only been our church. Yes. Possibilities are endless, and I feel time running out sometimes when I think I just want to tell everyone's story. Yes. I want everyone to be able to share their story.
And like you said, everyone has a story. And I'm thinking to myself, mine sounds so boring. What am I going to say? How will we impact another person? Because it's not like I was in a gang or stuff like that. But who knows what my story can do.
As always, I want to say thank you to our listeners. Without a listener, the story can't be heard. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it. Send it to somebody that needs to hear it. Whether they are a Christian or not, please send it. If you are not a Christian and you are listening, you also can have your own transformation. John 3:16 says, God sent Jesus Christ for our sin. A very simple prayer can be the beginning of your new story. Just acknowledge your sin, recognize that Jesus paid the price for that sin, and just ask Him to come in your heart and forgive you, and He will. So until next time, this is Rachel Heimberg, and you've been listening to Not the Same.